Autism is known as a spectrum disorder because there is a wide variation in the type of symptoms and the severity of those symptoms that each individual might experience. Although autism is a lifelong disorder, treatments and services can improve a person's symptoms and their ability to function in everyday society. Common characteristics that you might see are difficulty with communication and interaction with other people, restricted interests and repetitive behaviours, and symptoms that limit the person's ability to function properly in school, work, and everyday areas of their life. Some of the generalised behavioural characteristics you may see in a child with autism are often due to the difficulties they have responding to their environment. Their behaviour is generally an attempt by them to communicate their feelings or to cope with a situation. Behavioural problems may occur as a result of their heightened sensitivity to a sound or something they may have seen or felt. For people on the spectrum, rigidly sticking to routines and spending their time in repetitive behaviours are ways for them to reduce uncertainty and maintain the predictability of their environment. Commonly, people with autism have difficulty establishing and maintaining relationships because they often don't respond to the non-verbal forms of communication that many of us take for granted, like facial expressions, physical gestures, and eye contact. This can be quite untrue for female diagnosis with autism spectrum disorder. A lot of girls will make eye contact, which can tend to mask the disorder. They're often unable to understand and express their needs, just as they're unable to interpret and understand the needs of others. Because they're often delayed in their speech, they struggle to make sense of other non-verbal forms of communication, so they might withdraw into repetitive play and behaviour and avoid interaction with others. People with autism often have communication difficulties in one form or another. So some people will speak fluently, others will be speech impaired, and others will be unable to speak at all. Of those who can speak, they'll often use language in a limited or unusual way, but even that is a stereotype in itself. There are some people with autism who are highly functioning and able to hold whole conversations. Their line of conversation, however, may involve repeating phrases or words back to you and asking the same questions repeatedly. They'll also only talk about topics that are of interest to them, which gives the give and take in a communication difficult. They also still have difficulty interpreting the non-verbal cues in communication, like facial expressions, hand gestures, and body language, which can make communication on the whole rather difficult for them. Students who don't speak, so who are non-verbal, will tend to use gestures though, and sort of forms of language to get their point across, whether it be thrusting something to you like a drink bottle or a cup for wanting a drink, pushing or pulling at you. So physical forms of communication to get their message across as opposed to using the spoken word.
I would say toileting, in particular, affects Millie's inclusion in the learning environment, in that it basically takes her out of the classroom a lot, managing it. She needs to sit on the toilet and try to go to the toilet so many minutes after eating, which might not always coincide well with classroom routine. Also, if she has an accident, she might not always feel that she needs to go or recognise that she needs to go, so this could happen in the classroom or in the playground. So this takes more time away from classroom activities and socialising if she needs to clean herself up. It also affects her peer relationships, obviously, as the children notice that Maggie's ability to manage her bowels is quite different from their ability. So, yeah, the kids really notice this. Also, her verbal communication skills. So, Maggie's often not able to ask for help that she needs. So if she doesn't know what to do, she'll just sit there. So that really affects the quality, I guess, of her experience, in that she might not always be actively learning. She might just be off daydreaming or waiting for someone to come and help her. And that's a lot of, I guess, wasted time in the classroom. Also, she's not always very good at getting out of social situations that might be challenging. She might not have the language skills to negotiate her way out of situations or to express that she doesn't want to be in that situation. So this can escalate things and lead to physical outbursts, which goes into self-regulation. If she's very tired, so normally towards the end of the day or the week or the term, Maggie might have a hard time concentrating, so she might not get the best out of any lessons during that time, or she may need to have a break and go outside to do some physical activities to help her be able to self-regulate again, or they might do that preemptively to help her. They can see that she's getting a bit hyper or a bit flat. They might send her to do some mostly physical activities to help her be able to regulate herself again. So we have a few different ways of communicating with the school about Maggie and her needs. We find that having more than one option for communication really helps us to stay on top of things, in that we can pick the most appropriate mode depending on what we need to discuss. So the communication book, that's one of our options. That's a daily sort of diary that we write any important therapy appointments or assessments outside of the school down in. If anything happens at school during the day, or if they're tracking anything for behaviour or toileting, they'll write it in that book. We also have emails, so email to the teacher and to the head of learning. Quite often we'll email the teacher a couple of times a week if there's anything that's quite timely or that we don't want to write in the book, because sometimes Maggie is starting to read and she'll look in the book and start trying to work things out. So if it's really quite sensitive, we won't put it in there. We'll email it. Also, we do have meetings quite often. So usually once a term, we'll meet with the teacher, and especially before a report is due out. So just to go through what we expect to find in that report and how Maggie is tracking in general with learning and behaviour, and I guess just to let them know what we're doing outside of school as well and what our expectations are probably for the term coming up. We also have a major meeting with the head of learning, the school psych, therapists, like a planning meeting that's usually once or twice a year, and it's just good to get everybody together in one room. It sort of keeps us all on the same page as to what's going on. Also having a teacher with an open door policy, so we can always usually grab her for a few seconds or even a few minutes before or after school if we need to feed some information to her quickly, or just check in with how Maggie's going with a particular item. It's always good to have that, be able to have that contact. It just really helps. which is currently our main focus and will probably remain the focus for a matter of months until we notice and improve on that. We like to use social stories and these work really effectively with Maggie. The stories at this stage are picture-based with minimal text, however, Maggie understands them and we're able to relate these stories to everyday situations for her, and they're more of a support for the other things that we've implemented. We've recently got a new ICT product that enables us to easily create these social stories with more precise details, a lot more specific to Maggie herself, which we're finding really, really useful. Maggie's parents really support the pivotal response training that we have implemented at school, and we've provided them with the resources that were provided to us to help implement the strategy at home, and these resources have been developed by ASD professionals. There's also online support available for Maggie's family if they require it. Maggie's family adapt everyday tasks to suit her to be able to use the resources effectively, and they're really embracing the development that happens every day, the milestones that occur, so everybody's on board. We aim to bridge the gap between ASD families and education providers by encouraging family participation and having open communication policies at our school. It's important to remember that Maggie's family have got specialised knowledge and skills when it comes to Maggie's ASD, and many of these has been implemented by other professionals such as her occupational therapist and paediatrician, and as educators we need to understand this and support this bank of knowledge that we're provided with. And on this note, it's really important that we try and appreciate the additional stress and responsibility associated with having an ASD child and really be respectful about this. It's also really important that we effectively work with all parties of Maggie's IEP team so that she can have the best education possible regardless of her diagnosis. A number of teachers here have done the positive partnership training, which enables us to work really respectfully and appropriately with families affected by autism. And positive partnerships has enabled us to create an